Good afternoon. Here we are, onward talking about our business plan, and now we're up to the business description portion. And, this part shouldn't be terribly difficult because it doesn't involve a ton of research and those types of things. But I find that, it doesn't involve the research necessarily, that people tend to, I don't know, not put a good full effort into what it is that they're describing. And the way I've said it in the past anyhow, and the way I'd like you to look at it is this: for years when I was in banking and we would get applications for SBA guaranteed loans, and I did a lot of those, and the application would come through us at the bank, but we oftentimes had to send it to somebody else for approval. And for a long time it was to Helena, where a description about Havre and the area and stuff probably wasn't all that important. Even people in Helena knew enough about Montana and the area that it wasn't a big deal. But later, in the last several years I was at the bank, we had to send SBA applications for guarantee all the way to Sacramento, California. And, just imagine that there's probably some young lady or young fella, just out of college or a couple of years out of college that's, poring over SBA loan documents, to try to see if, they might want to approve a guarantee for a loan. And they don't even have a clue. They couldn't find Montana on a map, let alone Havre. Okay, and they don't know anything about the area. They don't know the demographics. They don't know the population. They don't know the geography. They don't know anything. They don't know what we do for fun, and on and on and on. And so, I'd tell customers then as now that you need to write this for that person. Okay, for that person that just doesn't have a clue, but that might be instrumental in getting you an investment or a loan, whichever the case may be for your particular project. Okay, so put detail into it. Not, let's go through, a few things. I'd also point out that there's necessarily between this and your marketing plan, there's always some overlap. Okay, because you talked about your products and services and whatnot in your marketing plan, and you have that here too. I guess, and I wrote this to one particular group here, I think, already, and that is, if you emphasize it in one area, just summarize it in the other. So you might have a lengthy, detailed description of your product or service in the marketing portion. It's okay to just summarize it then here in the business description. You might even make reference to the fact that there's a better description in the marketing plan, or vice versa. Okay, and so as you're going through this, if you find yourself being a little bit redundant, you want to, I thought I already wrote that. That's okay. Again, maybe go back and see what you wrote, summarize it, make a reference to that other area, and away you go. Okay, so first, what business will you be in? What will you do? Okay, so that's just a general description, right, about what it is you're going to be doing. Okay, and make that again as detailed as possible, and I'll talk about detail in a little bit. But the mission statement, you might have put this in your marketing, and honestly, it's probably where I'd put it. If you want to restate it here, no problems with that. Okay, company goals and objectives, right? Where do you want to be, and this doesn't necessarily need to be financial, but I always think financial. Of course, your investors and lenders are going to want to know those types of things in terms of sales targets and whatnot. But do you want to grow this business, maybe expand it to other locations? Do you want to grow this business and expand it where you're at? What kind of revenue and what kind of profits is that going to take? Do you want to maybe expand it in terms of employees? Some people have a very altruistic goal like that, either employees or how they serve customers, or how they can improve customers' lives, those types of things, and those are fine. Talk about those goals and objectives and whatever yours are, that's fine. Okay, Business philosophy, what's important, and that can kind of mix in with that. Okay. Detailed description of the business and premises and its location. This was new, by the way, so if you've already downloaded this template, I put this in there, and I replaced it in the main page there on D2L. So if you click on it now, this is what you'd come up with. And again, this gets back to explaining and telling the person, on the other end that maybe knows nothing about Havre or Roy or Timbuktu, what it's like there, so that they have a really good mental picture. Would pictures be okay? Sure, a few. I mean, I wouldn't want a 20-page, photo expose, but a few pictures would be just fine. To whom are you going to market your products? Again, you've done a more thorough explanation of that, so state it briefly. Describe your industry. Are you in a growth industry, a declining industry, a stable industry? Is this thing high tech? Is it low tech? Is it old tech? Is it new tech? What is it? Okay, and how do you fit in there? Have you invented a new product? And even if you have, it's probably one that slides into a new industry or something. So, however detailed you can get that, again, the better. You might be able to describe your industry monetarily. Let's say you were getting into a car, you just wanted to start a car dealership. It's pretty easy to go out and find statistics on how many cars are sold every year, what the dollar amount is, how much dealerships do an average for service work, those types of things. That type of information should be pretty easy to find. So your company strengths, core competencies, right? What factors are going to make the company succeed? Your major competitive strengths. Again, you should have done a SWOT analysis, right? Okay, and so you're picking out the best things of that, right? And then, what background, experience, skills, personally bring into this new venture. And again, that was probably in your management organization. So you might just hit on a couple really big and important ones there. And again, in your management organization, you probably talked about this, what type of entity and why you've selected that. I think there was some confusion with some people, so you might want to check with me if you have confusion about why you may have chosen a particular entity, or if you need a little help choosing what entity. I should have made this a little bit bigger. Oops, not that big. Sorry. Okay, then we go down, and again, describe in depth your products or services. Technical, if there's any, a lot of your services. Again, would drawings, photos, those types of things be okay? Sure. If you have those types of things, that would be fine. Okay. What factor is going to give you a competitive advantage? There you go. Unique, or again, low price, or are you a differentiator? Probably one or the other. What's the pricing fee? Leasing structures of your products and services. So the product and service part of it, fairly short, but this is going to take you a page or two to write it up, I would think. I would like to hope so. Okay, and that should be it. Yep. And then you get into the marketing plan, but let's talk about a few things. Okay, just to add to this a little bit. So, right, you've discussed the business within the marketing plan, and now it's time we want to give it a good, thorough description. And I say this: how thorough, right? I don't believe you can be too detailed. And I think, and maybe I say it later in this slideshow, I don't know, but I have never ever deducted points from somebody's project because they were too thorough, that they were too detailed. Never. Okay, I have oftentimes, very often, put little remarks in there that this was not detailed enough, or maybe more specifically in certain areas. Okay. And so I don't believe you can be too detailed. Okay, and remember, when you're describing your product and service, it's okay to describe it, I guess, in be accurate and mundane about just what it actually is, but also describe it then in terms of what it does, right? And I got some examples there. Toyota sells efficient, reliable transportation. Rolex doesn't sell watches. They sell prestige, right? Crocs, although Crocs is a little bit of a dying animal, not the crocodile itself, but the shoes. But they sell a comfort, right? And Allstate sells peace of mind. What's Nike sell? You know, comfort for the active person, maybe, right? Same with Under Armour, and you know, think through your product or service. And what are you? You know, if you're there's a daycare, you know, are you selling peace of mind to the parents of the children? You know, and convenience for them, maybe. Yeah. So those are the things. Again, think through your product, right? Positioning, okay. You know, relates to your marketing proposition. Are you a high-end differentiator, or are you low-end, low-cost? Most small businesses are going to be differentiators, right? It's very difficult for a small business, you know, unless somehow you create a new method of building something that's cheaper. It's difficult for new products or services to compete at the low end on the cost, okay? Then go back and study about, you know, is your good or service a convenience good, a shopping good, or a specialty good? These are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Okay, you know, your location could certainly be convenient, even though you've got shopping goods. Okay, your service may be a specialty, but that doesn't mean, again, that your location couldn't be convenient, or that you know, a specialty. What would I have a project one time? A guy was going to do mobile oil changes. So he was going to go out to people and change their oil for them at their location. You know, he was all set up to do that. That was kind of a specialty service, right? But his whole basis for his business plan was really that he was doing it conveniently. You know, he could go to people's work and do it right there. Okay, those types of things. So competitive evaluation, right? And again, you should have done a SWOT analysis. Okay, so in this case, you're gonna, you know, how do you stack up? Where are you? Maybe summarize that a little bit. Okay, how your strategy is going to allow you to fit in. Will you be adding to your product line? And most of you should answer yes. There's some exceptions to that. There's some folks that really just want to have a small business and they don't want to really add to their product line. But yeah, I've known a lot of people my age, you know, say that have had businesses here in Havre for a long time, and just through the years, some of those things happen naturally. Sometimes they probably didn't expect it to, but customers would keep coming in and saying, you know, can I get this? Can you do that? And I wouldn't say force them necessarily to expand, but showed them that there was that opportunity. Location, again, detail, detail, detail. Okay, and what do I mean by that? I want you to start. What I would do is I would probably start from the inside and work out, if that makes sense. So describe, right, the address of the business, the town, and the state, but this doesn't go far enough. Okay, let me see. When you get to the address, okay, you're going to be at 915 First Street or whatever, but what's going to be there? You know, it's a 400 square foot building. We're leasing it. It has, you know, 4 rooms plus a bathroom. It's a unisex bathroom. It's on and on and on and on. Hang on, I got to pause for a second. Okay, sorry about that, but you know, yeah. What I mean, how are you going to decorate it? Yeah, the toilets. I said unisex toilets, or maybe you know, handicapped accessible. Those types of things. Is your location going to be handicapped accessible? Right. You're going to have, you know, decorations. What's your you know, what's your counter going to look like? Your point of sale. How many? If you're doing a coffee shop, say, you know, how many tables are you going to have, and chairs around the tables? Are they going to be, you know, low tables, or are they going to be, you know, bar stool type of tables? On and on and on. Pictures are appropriate. If you've picked out certain decor, you know, or maybe different types of furniture or whatever, you found it online or whatever that you want to have in there, you know, if you put a few of those in there as descriptive things, that's fine. That's one thing where I would tell you, don't overdo the photos. You know, a few to make your point are great, but we don't need 50 pages of just photos, right? We would tire quickly of that. So they should be, you know, photo that should be able to fit within the narrative, and just add something to the narrative, if that makes sense. So Okay, the town. Again, you might have described the town in your marketing section a little bit because you probably talked about the demographics. Hopefully you did into some detail, what the population is, et cetera, et cetera. But I want you to get even a little bit more specific. And you guys probably all too young to know what Lake Wobegon is, but there was a radio guy who did a show. It was called Lake Wobegon. Garrison Keeler was his name. And he's just really descriptive, and he talked about Lake Wobegon it's an imaginary town, but right, that's the news from Lake Wobegon, where all the women are strong, all the men are good and looking, and all the children are above average. Okay, and he would talk about other things about the town, and obviously he had a flair for words that I in no way could match, and I don't necessarily expect you to, but I'm hoping that it gives you the kind of an idea of what we're looking for in terms of descriptiveness. How well can you describe that town? So again, we get a mental picture of it. By the way, I would tell you that when you're doing this for the town, go to the Chamber of Commerce or a local thing like that. It may have some really good stuff in there, and it's okay to copy that. Just make sure that you note, where it came from, where that description came from, and make sure in your bibliography that you have that, or at least cite it right within the text itself. But make sure you cite your source in that case. Factors you consider, when you're describing, only if they're important to your business, right? Or they may be huge for your business. If you were doing an egg business, and we've got at least one of those, right? Well, it's important to be in an egg area, right? Where you got water, and you got land, and you got different things like that, perhaps, right? Utilities, workforce if you need that. Physical plants, the water, sewer, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. Community services and amenities, how important is that? Okay, what's the cost of the physical plant for your location and everything, right? How about your competitors? Where are they? Parking, all of them. Just go through it. Wage scales. We've got a minimum wage that's a little higher than the nation's required, right? But is that what you can get away with? Paying your people, or is the average wage a little bit higher? All right. If you need transportation, how available is it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. There you go. One of the first jobs after college that I was at. In fact, it was when I started at the bank, and the guy that was in charge of training me, he used to say, if you're gonna go out and have a good time and end up with a hangover the next day, he says, do that on a weekday. And I would kind of look at him like, what the heck are you talking about? And I did ask him that. What are you talking about? How could you do that on a weekday? And he said, well, if you're going to have a hangover, you just as well get paid for it. Yeah, that was an interesting kind of logic. So he's still a pretty good friend today. Okay, so hopefully, I have in there what the level of detail is. Again, we talked about the local, the exact location where you're at. We talked about the city. Nothing wrong with expanding out to the county. If your business is in Havre and you don't talk about the recreational opportunities that are around here, you would be remiss, right? We've got the largest county park. We have a lake, that's big enough for all kinds of fun, boats and water skiing and personal, whatever. And we've got lots of hunting and fishing in this area, and skiing and those types of things, right? And again, a chamber or those types of organizations can be helpful when you write up this type of description, and feel free to avail yourself of those kinds of resources. Okay, and you can even expand that then to maybe even a description of Montana if that fits your business. Certainly, if I read somebody's got a business here in Havre, and I don't read that it's on Highway 2, which is one of the main passes or passages to Glacier National Park. Oh, Well, I point that out. Yeah, that should be in there, right? Okay, Highway 2 gets a lot of traffic, especially in the summer, because people are coming to and fro. And oh, by the way, Amtrak Drive comes through Havre, right? So we've got that kind of transportation. Our airlines are a little bit weak, but we do have Great Lakes, that provides service to Billings, which with connections to who knows where. Okay, I could babble on, forever probably about Havre, and that's my point. You should, okay, babble on a little bit about your location and what's available there and whatnot, and what the geography is like, et cetera, et cetera. So do that. Again, I'm not going to complain if you get too much data or too much detail in there. So thanks and good luck. This will be due in 2 weeks, I think. So right about the time of the Masters golf tournament.